introduce our panel here, and we'll just dive right into the conversation. So we have Alyssa Nolte here. She is the head coach for Cedar Falls High School, and she's in her 8th year of head coach or coaching there. And I have to give her a shout out because she is the mastermind behind our webinar signups and social media. So kudos and thank you. And then we have Liz Lefevre. She's the head coach for Clear Lake High School. She is the District 3 board alternate, and this is her 18th year of coaching. And then we have Lois Turnage. She is the head coach for Pleasantville High School, and she is our board president, and this is her 42nd year of coaching. How is that possible, dear?
I know, because I'm only 50 years old.
I think so.
That's a lie.
I know, Lois. So each of them has prepared, they had to narrow this down. We were just talking as you were all joining that we had to narrow this down. There are so many tips to share with you all, but 3 tips for success that they've learned they want to share with you, and 3 lessons learned so that you don't have to learn them yourselves. They've already done them for you. So then we'll go into the questions. So Lois, you're up on my screen, so you get to go first with your tips, okay?
Okay, so 3 tips for success. There's, I don't know, success is a word that can be defined in many different ways. First of all, I like to think that success means that you just feel good and your team feels good about what they've done and what they've accomplished. It's not about the hardware, you know, the trophies and that kind of a thing. It's about having that good inner feeling of we did this. But I'm going to say that a tip for success would be for you as a coach to stay positive. It is very easy for all of us, myself included, to dwell on what's not going right, to dwell on all the mistakes that might be happening or the issues. Try to stay positive and always communicate that to your team members. Try to always end your practices on something. Hey, okay, this is great. Today we got this and this accomplished or whatever. And then use that as a jumping off point for next practice we're going to be doing, and give them an idea of what you're planning on working on. Obviously you can work on other things too, but it gives you that forward thinking attitude. Another thing would be, kind of goes with that, is always plan for more. Like when you're planning what you want to get done in practice, always be sure to have, you know, probably more than what realistically you would accomplish, because in that off chance that things just really click, you don't want to be standing there going, okay, well, I guess we could run this, but then you don't have the music, or I guess we could run this routine, but you don't have the palms there, or for whatever. So it's just a more efficient use of your time. And finally, on another tip, I would say that you need to take time for yourself. You need to take time for the personal interests that you have, the time with your family, the time with, you know, just to pursue things that you like to do. And it is so easy to just give and always be spending so much time either at the school or at your practices, or just thinking about it all the time when you're at your home. And you just got to like flip that switch off and just do something else, because really a lot of the creative things often will come when your mind is more centered on something totally different. Do you want me to go into the lessons, or
Go for it.
Okay. Well, I've been doing this a really long time, and people ask me, you know, how have you been doing this so long? And I don't know, I guess I don't really think about how long it is, but I do think about, you know, you always want to continue to enjoy what you do. And most days I do enjoy what I do. But you got to just remember that it's all good. It's all fine. It's all going to work out. You know, things happen for a reason, and something might really awful happen. One of your best dancers comes and tells you she can't go out for dance anymore because XYZ, you know, things happen for a reason. That may allow other girls to step up and really blossom. I mean, you never know. So you have to just focus on that and don't dwell on that. Always communicate, be proactive. If there's an issue that's going on that you feel, maybe it's a gym usage thing, maybe it's issue with one of the girls, maybe it's a parent thing, whatever. Don't stew about it. Don't let yourself become all wrapped up about it. Maybe share with another trusted person your thoughts, but don't be afraid to, in a polite and professional manner, address it. Go right. And I prefer face-to-face as opposed to emailing back and forth or texting back and forth. That's the thing about technology. It kind of allows us to hide, and you really do have to grab hold and just face-to-face is always best. And finally, don't be afraid or don't hesitate to reach out to others. And that is the wonderful thing about ISDTA and this whole group of fellow colleagues, that we all can reach out. This is a perfect example of this. Reach out to other coaches, reach out to people. Nothing is too little or too silly or whatever. If it's a concern to you, then reach out. Don't let it work you down, because we really want our coaches to have longevity and to have a long career with ISDTA, and so you can all be like me and coach for 42 years. Joking. Anyway, but truly, reach out, talk to people. Don't be afraid to shoot an email, call someone, whatever. And because we may not know all the answers, but at least it's somebody to listen, somebody to help you out.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Thanks, Lois.
Sure.
All right, Alyssa, I'm going to move on to you for your 3 and 3.
Okay, so mine kind of mixed together. So I have a unique experience in how I kind of got started coaching. When I joined Cedar Falls as an assistant coach, I joined under the mentorship of Gail Breeny, and she had been coaching for about over 30 years at that point. And during my time with her, I was able to essentially be an apprentice, as she taught me how things work, how the team runs. So I have kind of that older, more veteran perspective, because she taught me so many things, but also lots of the things that I learned in as a new coach and taking over the program myself. Things that I learned that I would say are my number 1, 2, and 3 is don't underestimate the need for fitness on your team. I think in my first couple of years, I focused so hard on like the dance technique, and I let a lot of that focusing on like the artistry instead of focusing on like the fact that these girls are athletes and these guys are athletes. So making sure that they were properly conditioned in order to do the things I was asking them to do, including a good solid warm-up and a good solid stretch. I know that there's the temptation to call it good and just get started and start cleaning. But we've learned the hard way that really is the quickest way to have a crappy season, is when everyone's injured and you get to state and no one can dance anyway. So really putting a priority on fitness, even though it feels like you're taking time away from your practice. My next tip for success is to stand up for yourself. If the decision, you're going to make a lot of really tough decisions as a coach, whether it's, pulling a girl from a routine or cutting someone from your team or making a decision when it comes to changing things up. And if you believe that what you're doing is honestly in the best interest of the team as a whole, then you need to stand your ground. There's been a lot of times where I've tried to implement something that I was like, this is good for the team, this is good for us. And a couple of teenage girls started whining about it, and then I backed down, even though I knew it was what needed to be done. So stand your ground. This is also kind of following what Lois said about setting the right mentality for your season. So I tell my girls, when we set goals for our season, we have to set what is called a SMART goal. And that's specific, measurable, actionable, and I forget the R and the T. I think T is timed.
Realistic,
thank you. So what that means is I won't let them say, what's our goal for the season? And I'm like, well, our goal is to get first place at state. And I'm like, no, that can't be our goal, because first of all, we have no control over the other teams and what they bring. We have no control over what the judges do. And it might not be realistic for us to set that as a goal. So is our goal that we are in good enough shape that we can physically perform this routine and we walk off the floor feeling like we did the best we could, that we did everything we needed to do? Then that is a goal we can have, not simply related to the hardware. And I think that's hard because I'm a hyper competitive person, right? I think everyone in this little chat here probably is. So rephrasing your mindset of It's okay if we don't win. It's okay if we don't even place, as long as we go and we do exactly what we needed to do and we gave everything we could. So those are my 3 like tips for success. 3 lessons learned. And I've only been doing this 8 years, so really not that long in the grand scheme of things. But I learned a lot of things through really dumb decisions that were made. And most of them, all of them, have to do with communication with parents and dancers. So for me, my lessons learned is don't text anyone. Don't text with parents. Don't text with dancers. Don't communicate in that kind of a medium because it's too rapid fire, especially like if you're just saying like, oh, practices moved to blah, 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 fine. But if you're having a conversation of any depth or relevance to your team, don't do it through text. Do it through email so that if you have to CC your athletic director or whoever's your supervisor, you're able to do that. It's also easier to like save and print email so you have a physical copy of what was said. I tell my parents at the beginning of my season that I will not text them for any reason ever. So if they want to communicate with me, they can call me, they can email me, or we can meet in person, but I won't text with them. Also, I'm really bad at texting. I'll like open my text and forget to respond. So like that's part of it too for me. I also have a personal policy of waiting 24 hours to respond to anything that is negative, because I think that if you get again in that rapid fire situation, it can be really difficult or it can be really easy to say things you wouldn't say in a calmer moment. So for example, after tryouts, I will refuse to open my email for at least 24 hours because I need that time to take a step back and not say something that I would regret later on. And then the last thing that is my, like, again, communication is be really transparent with your dancers and with your parents. So if you're making a decision, so for us, we have captains. And I explained to the girls who applied for captain why they didn't get captain. Because I think it's important for them, one, to grow as leaders in the future. It may be, and I want them to understand why the decisions were made, why I'm making a specific decision, so that they can see my reasoning and my rationale behind it. So when I'm choosing alternates, when I'm cutting girls from the team, when I'm, really doing anything that could be perceived as difficult or frustrating or negative for the dancers or for the parents, I'm really open and honest with them. I definitely treat them like they're older than they are, because I expect them to hear what I'm saying, to understand, and to grow from it. Mm-hmm. And that might be like the business professional background in me who wants everyone to like get better and better and better all the time. But I think if you treat them like adults, they will start to behave like adults. They will still act like teenagers, but I believe in like people rising to your expectations. So those are kind of my three things for things to avoid and my tips for success.
Got it. Liz, you are popular.
I'm trying to get someone in on the webinar. I can't get it. Stop digging.
Oh, that's okay. All right, your turn.
Okay. My first tip would probably be is to get to know your administrator and how they like things done. So you need to know who you need to contact for travel, how to arrange a practice space, how they like, their use it to submit expenses or purchases, and who to go to schedule performances, and figure out how they like to do things. And if your administrator is happy with you, and I always say it's good to keep out of their hair and keep things rolling, and it'll just make life easier. And also, I've found that my administrator is always super busy and tends to forget a lot of stuff. So like if we're supposed to dance tomorrow, I'll just say, hey, just a reminder, we're dancing tomorrow. Or if we needed to have Suburbans or a bus, even though I would have lined it up a month ahead of time, the week of, I always send them a reminder email, and just to make sure that things are on the path that they're supposed to be, because it can easily be forgotten in the big school conglomerate. Second is, as a coach, you're the leader of the team, so you need to set an expectation You need to have a repercussion if that expectation isn't met, and then you need to follow through with it. I know that it's super easy to be like, oh, you didn't do it full out that time. Oh, that's too bad. But if you say before you start, we're doing it full out, if you don't do it full out, you know that you're going to have to plank for 30 seconds. One person marks something, and then you actually do it. It's a whole lot less wasted time. And I think that, kids roll their eyes at you and, oh, they're tired. They don't want to do their toe touch. But at the end of the day, they're going to be thankful that you made them do it later in the season. And they respect that you have control over what's going on in practice. I don't let that's kind of like one of my things is I don't let especially if I feel like kids are starting to be a little lazy, then I kind of, here we go. And if they're talking before you're going to start dancing, I count down to 3 and I start the music, and then they know they better get to their spots and talk time is over. But it's a way to keep your practice efficient too. My third tip is I am super transparent and have good communication with parents, but I do agree with everything that Alyssa said about how to, especially in heated arguments, it's always better to meet face to face. But like we had, dance teams do a lot of fundraising, and I want those parents to know what exactly are we fundraising for. So I do a budget at the beginning of the year and like, okay, we're going to spend this much on choreography, this much on costumes. The school bus costs us this much, and our state hotels cost us this much. And I feel that their parents are a lot more receptive to the fundraising efforts because they know where their money is going, or our money is going. It's hard as a parent to say, here's $100. I don't know what you're using that for. We do a lot of our communication in a Facebook group, and I do have all the parents in the group with the kids, and it's always just this is the schedule for the week or a reminder about that. But that way, there are some kids that their parents are used to nagging them a little bit about life, and those parents don't feel left out about what's going on. And then the parents that don't pay any attention, you can say, hey, it was right here, you should have read it. But I'm super open and transparent. Everyone knows what we're doing, and I'm also very good about, on side note, we have practice from 2 to 4. We're going to be done at 4. But
Yep.
This is a tip, but you also need to know your team. Number 4, sorry, know how your team reacts to different styles of coaching. Last year I'm a more positive, we did this great. Well, last year I had a team that anytime I told them that they did something well, then the next practice they would come and kind of slack off. And so I know it sounds strange, and especially for our girls. So I always I would, maybe at the beginning of the practice say the positive thing, and then, like this team needed to hear we got to work harder, it's not good enough. And that's not the same year to year. You have to know your kids to know how they're going to react, and what kind of coach you need them to be, or you need to be for them. Some mistakes, I would say, especially as a new coach and you're learning the ropes and you need help, it's easy to try to give the kids and the parents too much power in your organization. Well, they want to do this and they want to do that, and keep the power in your pocket. You give parents jobs or kids jobs, but they need to know who's in charge. Simple things like picking out a t-shirt, what's that going to affect anybody? That's a great job for kids. But deciding costumes, that's not a great job for kids. Another mistake is you need to make sure you align your expectations as a coach with your team's expectations and effort. So if they want to practice twice a week, and you know that the team that is going out and winning a lot of things practices 4 times a week and is taking technique class, you can't expect to put in less effort and beat them. And your kids have to be, so you have to make the decision. Are we okay? Is this our effort? And then we need to be okay with those results because we know some people are working harder than us. I have always struggled with wanting to work harder than maybe my team wants to work. And I want it more than they do. So it's really great when those expectations align, and that's really fun because more positive as a coach and the kids. I have to say I don't do this, but don't miss out on any networking opportunities with other coaches or educational opportunities. The amount of stuff I've learned in the last 18 years, it's crazy. I mean, you can learn about transitions and cleaning and, fundraising. So, and every time you sit down with another coach, you are going to get the feeling that they're going through what you go through. And it's just the kind of support that you need to continue coaching year after year. But I feel like that's a big rookie year mistake is I don't need to go to conference, or I don't need to go to camp, or I don't have time. Make time because it'll just make you a better and happier coach. Last quick tidbits. Learn from the teams that you admire. Don't be afraid to ask those coaches, even if they're your biggest rival, they could be your best friend and they're going to want to help you too. So don't be afraid to ask for help or ask, how do you do that? How do you get your palm movement so strong? They might not tell you everything, but they'll give you a little tidbit of help. Always get fresh eyes on your routine. When the kids stop listening to me, that's when I start bringing other old coaches in or alumni in, and get on the floor and perform before state because you don't want that to be your first time out. And I know that's a long list.
There's a lot to share. There really is. And not at all to overwhelm. Well, hi, Emily. We just had a feature soloist. Okay, so we are going to jump into some of the questions, and I'm going to watch the chat group as well. If anybody has some questions that are just top of mind, feel free to type those, and we'll kind of bounce back and forth. So, Lois, I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
So the question that was submitted, what are the benefits to joining ISDTA if you're not competing at contest?
Well, to me, the biggest benefit of joining ISDTA, which we are a professional organization of dance team and color guard coaches in the state of Iowa. So just the professional relationship that you would have in becoming a member of our organization says a lot about your personal professionalism and what your willingness to learn and do as much as possible. Whether you're going to state or not, you're still performing. And so it will give you an opportunity to network with other people, to have perhaps coaches come in and watch, as Liz just said, watch your routines. Maybe you would decide not to go to state, but maybe some smaller or regional competitions or showcases. And our websites and our other pieces of information can give you ideas about where you could get those performance opportunities. So it's definitely a plus. You don't want to be out there by yourself, and we are a very great group of people that is very supportive of people just getting started, people that have been doing this for a long time.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Lois. Okay, so Liz, here's a question for you. The question is maybe how you do it or some other suggestions on how to bring the team together in the beginning of the season and when the stress hits before state.
I think that the stress, what stress?
Stress?
You have to, that's our number one priority in camp is team bonding. And we get a lot of other stuff out of camp, but over the years, the camp that we have stuck with the longest is because it gives us the best opportunity to bond as a team. We really are heavy with maybe team bonding in the summer. We do a Instagram scavenger hunt, and We have a team potluck where we watch our state videos. We have big and little sisters or little dancer stuff now that we do throughout camp. We try to do some like team meals during the summer, but because we're a school that shares kids with volleyball and color guard and cheerleading, that's really hard to do when school starts. Kids always like to eat together, so like the other day, before school started, they went out to breakfast together after morning practice. You just try to do like little things, I think, and let them, we always do, like if we're taking pictures, we always do a funny picture. It's just like that little moment of them being silly always helps. And we try to build that through the summer. And then in the middle, when things are starting to get really stressful, that's when you kind of dig into your pocket and you're like, okay, it's time for a funny relay race in the middle of practice. Take 5 minutes and do something. I mean, it's so hard to stop, but sometimes you have to. Like, when I very first started coaching, I had girls, upset about breaking up with their boyfriend, and we like went around the circle and everyone said something positive about every team member. And, little things like that, you kind of have to know what your team needs. When we are getting ready for state and we're doing things like the extra performances, then we try to incorporate like going out to ice cream or other easy things when we're doing the work to help bond.
Mm-hmm.
But
Get
start
creative.
little, get bigger.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, Alyssa, I'm going to conjoin a couple of questions here because they're somewhat related. So what do you do if a dancer isn't ready for state performances? So in other words, how do you go about removing a dancer from a dance?
So I signed up for this question when Andrea sent out questions. So again, lesson learned. A couple years ago, I had a dancer who, it wasn't that she wasn't a good dancer. She actually had an injury that she was downplaying for me. It was actually worse than she was telling me. And I kept letting her sit out throughout the season because her knee was hurting. And I didn't end up pulling her out of the routine. And it was probably straight up one of the worst things I have ever done, not only to myself, but to her. So for this particular experience, she ended up blowing her knee at state, didn't tell me, got a concussion, didn't tell me, ended up in a coma after state on the bus home. So like, I knew she shouldn't have been dancing, but she was a good dancer and I needed her in my routine. So I let it go. Huge mistake there. I have also let girls who talent and technique wise didn't fit in with the rest of the group. And that is a very hard thing to tell a teenage girl because they already get enough of you're not good enough from every angle, from every social media, from every girl at high school. They get enough of that. So when you do decide not to pull a girl for not being able to execute the routine, I think you have to be open and honest about specifically what they need to work on when it comes to that routine. So if I'm pulling a girl and I'm making her into what we call an alternate position for our team, I will say, you're going to be an alternate. Here are the 3 things that I need you to work on in order to make the team or make the routine next year. And being clear with them and giving them something actionable that they can work on and they can improve was really helpful. My advice to you though is nobody wants to be that girl who is the reason that the routine doesn't go well. Better to be an alternate and to take a step back and work on it. Because like girls are mean. If you coach dance, you know this. Girls are mean. And everybody knows who that one girl is who isn't keeping up. And it's really just better socially if you let them take a step back and take the pressure off of them and let them kind of grow in a safer space.
Mhm.
So I guess, long story short, if you feel like it's the best decision for the team to pull that girl or that guy out, do it, but be very clear and honest with that dancer as to why the decision is happening.
Right, right. Yeah, and the nice thing is several years ago, as an organization, as a board, there's some flexibility for coaches with a 30% rule,
Mhm.
where you can have a maximum number of registrants and performers, and you can adjust your number of performers by 30%. So from the experience that I've had is that has given more girls and guys, dancers, opportunities to be on a team and compete at state, because they may not be the most technically sound, but they may be able to do a different style of dance that may not like, for example, may not be in lyrical, but could do novelty, for example. You need technique in all of it, but the level of technique could be different for your team. So take advantage of that 30% rule as much as possible. And if you don't have the luxury, or if you're choosing not to use that, you may need to adjust your choreography as well for the talent on your team if you don't want to cut someone. So anyway, I thought I'd just add that. Thanks.
I love the 30% rule.
It's
been
awesome.
great.
I love it too.
It is awesome.
And
Okay.
there are some kids out
Oh,
there.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, there's some kids out there that can handle being in one routine versus 3 routines. If they focus on that one, they can bring their level up to where it needs to be, versus when they have, if you're doing 3 routines, it's just too much for them.
Yeah.
So it has really brought a lot of opportunity to kids.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll be grateful to be in one versus none.
Right.
Right. Exactly. Okay, Lois,
Yeah.
tossing it over to you, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a couple of questions that are similar, and there's a lot of teams out there. You all do fundraising and community service. Pleasantville, you guys do a lot. It's impressive. So the questions, I'm going to combine them.
Okay.
How do you get your dancers more involved in charity work and fundraisers for the team? And what are some fundraising ideas that you've done that are successful other than selling cookie dough, kids clinics, concessions?
Okay. Right. The standbys, right?
Oh, yes.
I know. Well, first of all, I will talk about community service, and it is a tremendous opportunity for your team, the girls on your team, yourself, to give back to your community or to a greater effort, either a statewide activity or maybe even beyond. I would suggest one thing for Pleasantville, which we are a small town, but we are close to Des Moines. But one thing that really makes an impact, and it actually holds a dual purpose because it's a great way to market your team, which I was going to say that as a tip for success as well. You are the PR person. You are the one that really makes sure a photo gets in your local newspaper or gets posted on your school website or whatever it is. You really have to take the lead on that. You can't wait for someone else to come to you about that. But a community service event is a perfect opportunity. Food pantries. I'm sure most of the local communities or the counties have a food pantry at a performance perhaps, or maybe get together with, if it's a football game, maybe get together with your AD or another organization. Hey, at the football game, we're sponsoring a food drive. Bring a canned good, bring a non-perishable item to help stock the shelves at our local food pantry. People will do it. We do a 4th of July performance and there's no admission, but we encourage people to bring an item or 2 or 3, and people are very generous and understand the need. They just need to be made more aware of it. It's a very simple thing for them to do, but the food pantry people are thrilled when we show up with all these boxes and bags of items for them. I really would say you certainly can do things like, okay, Race for the Cure is something. We're close to Des Moines, so we're able to help volunteer get that huge event with helping different ways. But I really would suggest to people that are wanting to get their team involved is to go local. So try a food pantry drive, clothing drive. Marion County has a Helping Hands, it's called. I know a lot of counties or places have almost free stores or things like that. Perhaps churches have clothing pantries or clothing closets or whatever you want to call it for clothing housewares. And get them involved at a local level. And then you certainly can reach out, because once you start doing it, people start coming to you. Hey, would you guys be willing to help our library? We're doing a fundraiser. Or we get approached all the time because people know we do these things. But go local, start local. It'll be a wonderful way to also amp up the presence of your team beyond the performance floor, which is really important. Okay, fundraisers. It's always hard to come up with creative ways to try to raise funds. One thing that we've been doing for many years, and if anyone out there is interested in more information about this, they are looking for additional groups. But we have been working with Contemporary Services Corporation, which is the acronym CSC, in staffing the parking donor lots at Iowa State home football games. The University of Iowa, they also have a contract with them, as they do with UNI. There are also other events that they work with over the state, throughout the state, that they want groups to come in with adults as well. It's not just the kids, to help do some of these really pretty easy. It's the time, really. So what we do is, as the donors come into the parking lots, we tear off their hang tags and make sure they're parked in the right spot. So it's really nothing too challenging, but they need to have people there staffing it. And then they will, it's paid at $8.50 per worker, which then goes into our dance team account, which that can rack up some money pretty quickly. And we encourage our parents and our girls to sign up for games and be involved and so on. So that's a rather unique, I think, way of raising funds. And I know that there are other organizations throughout the state that will have, clean the stands in the arena after an event, things like that. We try not to sell things. Pleasantville is very small, and everybody is wanting to knock on the same doors, and so we really do no fundraising, door-to-door sales. We make it all more service-based and try to take it outside the community. Mm-hmm. So if anyone's interested in more information about that, please let me know. I'll get you hooked up with it.
Wealth of contacts.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Okay, so Liz, how do you go about selecting your POM music?
Ooh, I have lots of notes on that. Okay, well, for anyone in general, that you have to decide if you're going to use a mix or a single song. If you choose a single song, you need to make sure that the music changes and builds, because it's really easy to pick a song that's kind of here the whole time. I personally, for POM, prefer a mix, and we, over the last 5 to 10 years, have stuck to doing some sort of theme. So if in a mix, I like to have different styles of music, so you has different flavor. Like, we like to have this song sounds a little bit more like hip hop movement. This song sounds a little jazzier. Good old 80s rock and roll goes in there well for POM. You need to know the skill level of your dancers to know how strong that beat has to be, and then you can kind of expand it. That can help with your selection, but some girls can understand that strong movement without the really strong backbeat, and some people need it for sure. Always make sure that your routine, like I said, if you have one song, it has to move and change. If you make a mix, make sure it builds, and the energy, the music assists you to build the energy to the end of the routine. Mm-hmm. With themes, it's easy to pick a word and then just have that word be in every song. But if you want it to make it a little more interesting, start brainstorming things about your theme and come up with like a list of keywords. And then you can kind of arrange those songs in more of a story format. What else do I have here? For me, I always want to come up with an original theme, which is really hard. Maybe I go like 50-50 in my hip hop and pom. One will be like, oh, that was a little more out of the box. But for inspiration, I am addicted to watching dance in general. So I'm watching all the dance shows on TV, not like live, but I work a lot in the studio world, so I watch a lot of studio competitions. A lot of them live stream that you can be at home or at work and you don't actually have to go to them and you can watch some stuff. The college dance competitions, all the different nationals, they, just search YouTube and you can start watching some of it now, the sounds off. But what I like to do, like if I'm looking for a pom theme, I'll watch like kick routines. And oh, that was a really cool idea. How I could probably use that theme in pom. But then if you take a theme, you try to flip it around and make it a little bit more unique for you. Hip hop ideas and pom ideas are definitely always fairly well, not all, but you can kind of intermix them. Like I saw a pom idea from like an all-star national routine, and I said, I think that would make a really great hip hop theme. And we will see how that turns out in December.
No, November.
November.
Oh, November. I might be late. And then the most important thing is like, you know your team's personality, that'll help you pick the theme and help you pick your music. So, if you have a team that's super serious, you can go on more of like a serious hip hop or a serious pom. But if your team is kind of fun and high energy, then you should go with that,
Yep. Themes are a lot of fun, but I do want you to know you don't have to do.
Nope. It's all about the visuals at the end of the day.
Yes. It's a lot of fun. So Liz, do you let your girls pick the music?
I let them brainstorm ideas and then I decide. And it may not have anything to do with anything that they picked, but exactly. I let them have a little bit of say and have you never know if they're going to come up. And then eventually you're coaching so long you go, oh, I remember when so-and-so did that. We're not going to do, we're not going to do that. Yep. And they don't remember that. They're all young. But I let them brainstorm it out and then I don't tell them until the choreographer shows up what it is.
That's what's fun. That is, yep. A lot of, you have to make sure that you're making the decision as a coach for the music. It doesn't have to be off the radio. It needs to have crowd appeal and judge appeal. And so it is okay for you to make that decision on the music.
I'll jump in there too. I work very closely with my choreographers on the music.
That's really important too.
It's huge because they're the ones who are ultimately going to have to be inspired by what they're hearing. And if they're not inspired by the music I pick, I'm not going to get a good routine. So I work really closely with my choreographers. A lot of the times I'll say, this is my general idea. These are the songs that I like. And I'll let them pick pieces and sections from the song that they're thinking of using. But for me, it's really about, that we'll talk for weeks back and forth about this song. Because it, again, doesn't matter if I like it. It might not be my taste. It might not be my style. But if it's a good fit for my team and my choreographer's inspired by it, then that's what we're going to do.
I know last year our jazz choreographer picked the music and I had sent it to the captains and they didn't like it at all. And our choreographer had spent some time like watching our class. Like I sent her the videos from what our class were, and she watched those for a year or two, and she said, no, I really think this is what you need to do. And it ended up being our best jazz routine ever. So, sometimes you have to do the research and make the decision even if they're not on board right off the start.
Yep. Okay, based on time, we're gonna do one more question each on the panel, and we'll see where we are, okay? So I think in my order here, who just went? Liz, did you just go? Yep.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So Alyssa, this is about costumes. So when choosing costumes, do you ask for input from your dancers? Are they
Absolutely not. Never, ever, ever, ever.
Okay. So
And
how do
again, I learned the hard way. So I let girls pick costumes one year. I was apparently feeling generous that year, and I let them pick costumes. And they picked something that I would say was very Instagram cute. And then, but on the floor, it was dumb costume decision making. So we had black leggings with tank tops and white Nike high tops. And let me tell you, those white Nike high tops, I saw every foot mistake they made the entire routine. But girl, did they look good on Instagram, I guess. I don't know. So I was like, so I finally had to explain to these girls, like, you are not meant to look good on Instagram when it comes to dance costumes.
Yeah.
They are not meant to look good up close. They are meant to be loud and fun from a distance because that's where your judges are.
Yeah.
So I said, you will never like your costume as much as you like the thing you bought at Forever 21. You just won't. So no, I never let them have a say. And if they tell me they hate the costume, but it looks good on the floor, I don't care because that's really what it's about. And they can buy whatever they want to wear on Instagram another time. But for my 2 minutes, you're going to wear what fits the theme and what looks good on the floor and what doesn't unnecessarily show your mistakes, like white hip hop shoes do. So
Yeah.
just like nobody wear white shoes, please.
Well,
Okay, maybe my team can't wear white shoes.
right. Just so keep in mind, as you are thinking through your costumes, it's a great point. Our backdrops in both venues actually, so I'm thinking about team here. It's a black backdrop and the floors are gym floors. They're your tan gym floors, okay? Now at solos, it's a little bit different. We have an auditorium that has a black backdrop, and then it's 1, 2, 3 gyms, just normal gyms with bleachers in the background or a wall, like a concrete wall. So think through that in the costuming. It also goes with the makeup and the hair, all of that. It's not just the clothing. Okay, that could be a whole nother webinar.
For real.
Yeah.
Oh boy. So we're gonna keep going. Thank you, Alyssa. Okay, Lois.
Yes.
Other than state routines, how many performances do you recommend the team to perform during football, basketball seasons during half times?
Well, it kind of depends on the format and the, for example, at Pleasantville, we do perform with the band in the fall. I mean, we are on the field every home game, and we're performing with the band. Not everyone does that. Some have, certain games they perform. Some need to share with the cheer. And, I know there's different scenarios, particularly in the fall. For us, we do perform for all the home varsity boy, girl, our school has varsity boy, varsity girl games. And we perform for those half times. We perform the boys half because I have girls that play basketball. But we try to do every home varsity basketball game if at all possible. Then, community events, it just depends on your own community and your own situation, but it's always very good. Again, back to the public relations, it's always very good to try to be involved in your community events, whether it's a parade or it's a little routine that you do during a summer event or something. It's great to be, visible and involved at those types of things as well. So I would say as many performances as you feel that you can do and do well, to try and do that and push yourselves to do that. And they all don't have to be state caliber routines. They can certainly be, very visual routines and things that are maybe a little shorter, but you do want, of course, make sure that they are rehearsed and performed well, because I always tell my girls this: there will be people that see you perform at any of these events that will never see you again. And so because they're guests in the community, somebody came to watch their kid play basketball, whatever. And that's the impression they take away from that event and go back home. And, oh yeah, boy, that Pleasantville team, they were really struggling, blah, blah, blah. Hopefully they don't say that. Hopefully it's like, wow, they really have it going on there. So you have to send that message that every performance, there are going to be people there that see you that will form their opinions based on that one time. So it has to be spot on.
Yep. That's awesome. So, okay, I'm going to try to squeeze 2 more questions in here. So Liz, beginning of practice warm-up ideas.
Okay, I'm kind of a warm-up crazy person. We only have an hour practice in the morning, and we spend at least 20 minutes doing our warm-up and stretch. We always start off with doing some cardio stuff to get them warm and woken up. So jumping jacks, or running in place. If I think they're not paying attention, then I'll have them run to the wall and back, and jump, find a line and jump back and forth. And I try to change what they're doing every 30 seconds. So until I think they're awake and warmed up. Then we really, I try to make sure that we stretch from head to toe and warm up all the joints. I mean, wrist circles, knees, you never know what's going to be cold muscle wise. And we stretch and stretch and stretch. Cause that's, I think girls this age, if they're not stretching, this is where, if they had flexibility when they're younger, it just kind of stops. It doesn't just maintain, they have to stretch all the time. And if they're in any sort of other activity, they're not stretching is my bet. So if they're in volleyball, they're not stretching out from all that activity either. So we really put a lot of time into it. And then we go through body weight conditioning. We do abs stuff. We do squats and lunges. We do push-ups, arm thing. We have our basics, and, I do some of it every day, and they don't like it, but we do it. I do have some of it, we do wrist weights with palms. So some days we do some of that stuff with their wrist weights. Some days it's just body weight. But what I have found is if you do the same thing every day, this is how you start practice, they know what to expect, then you can take that out of practice. So when you go to state, you can, do your routine, your stretch and warm up routine, and it kind of calms everybody down and it focuses them. And it's just that breath of this is our routine. Okay, we're going to be fine. We're stretched, we're ready to go. I know we don't do that very well, during school performances, because we have kids that are running back from cheerleading and they have to sing the national anthem. But would I like to? Yes. But really, if you stretch, if you find that time in your practice to stretch and prioritize it, it's just going to help your technique. It's going to help your toe touches. It's going to help your kicks and your leaps. And, oh, quick, let's do some squat jumps and, plyometrics. It helps a lot. And if you, don't want to do jumping jacks, have your captains make up a funny, 2-minute dance to warm up, and then get into the conditioning and stretching.
That's good. I need to come to your morning warm-ups.
I actually really miss them when we're not practicing, because I do all the stretching with them, and then I feel better, so they have to too, right?
Thanks for me in, depending on what time it is. So.
6 a.m.
Never mind. Okay. So, Alyssa, maybe you can touch on this one real quick. How do you choose captains, captains? Is it by seniority, by attendance, attitude, leadership?
All of the above. So when I pick my captains, I give fairly extensive applications to any seniors who had been on varsity for at least 1 year. So they get like, it's like 15 questions, and they have to write little like essays about, you know, what it means to be a captain and what they would do in certain situations. And I honestly make my decision for captain like middle of their junior year, because when they're stepping up as juniors before they're actually official leaders, you can really see who they are. I will have no more than 4 captains ever. I had 5 one time. It was too many cooks in the kitchen. So I max out at 4 for my team of 30. And I look at different skill sets. So like this year I have one captain who's a really great dancer, but she's very quiet. So she always knows the choreography. She's a great leader. Girls know Ellie's going to know the choreography, but she's not necessarily someone who's going to stand up and say something. Rachel, another one of my captains, has some issues focusing sometimes. So I have to remind her she's a leader and she needs to focus on being focused in practice. But she's very great at that social aspect. So she really plays that social role. I put her in charge of organizing outside social events. And then I have Amy, who isn't as great at the social aspect. She's not what you would consider like the most popular girl on the team. If we had a vote, she would not be voted captain. But she works harder than anyone else on my team. She leads by example. So we do not vote for captains. I pick captains. It's part of my tryout process. They turn in their applications before tryouts. They answer one question for my judging panel. And the question is always the same. If you could pick 2 people besides yourself to be captain, who would you choose and why? So in a way, that's how I let them vote, because they tell me who they would choose if they were me and why they would choose them. And then I announce it on the day of tryouts. Those are my captains. And it's been a really good process for us. I know some teams don't have captains, and that's perfectly okay. I personally couldn't live without mine. With 30 girls, and then I have also my all-male team, I just need some people that I can rely on to be good leaders and to also tell me when stuff is happening that I need to know about. So if Susie broke up with her boyfriend and doesn't want to tell me, then I need to know that Susie's not being very nice because she broke up with her boyfriend, right? Or if there's something drama-wise that I need to take care of, I don't see those things, but my captains do. And we have kind of a trust policy of, we have our captains meetings, and you have like, it's a closed door policy. What happens in a captain's meeting stays in a captain's meeting. So yeah, captains are great for me, but they're definitely not for everyone. I know a lot of teams who don't have them, and it works just fine.
Yep, that's great. So I know we're at the top of the hour. I wanted to quickly touch base on a few other questions that are fairly quick kills, because they're references for future webinars or past webinars, and then we'll get this wrapped up. So one of the questions was about what's the difference between jazz and lyrical. So I will go out and send the link to our webinar back in July. We had a webinar about the differences between jazz, lyrical, and contemporary. It's fantastic. There's visuals, and there's a lot of key points to learn from that. And then upcoming webinars. So there was, how do I sharpen a routine? How do I make it clean? So on and so forth. Every Thursday in October, we have a different expert talking through how to clean a hip hop, kick, and palm, 3 key categories, but you can take a lot from all of those and apply it to really any routine. And then how to adjust your choreography to your team. So those are all in October. Then the other one that's coming up, September 13th, that's in a couple of weeks. I just talked to Rob, the guy that's doing this. It's going to be amazing, you guys. It's about strength and conditioning specific for dancers. Holy cow. Get your strength and conditioning coaches on there. Bring your captains on. Bring your team on to this webinar and learn. It's going to be amazing. So that's September 13th. You can sign up for all of these. The registration's already out there on Facebook, and I'll push it out via email as well. The last thing is, where can competition information be found? Well, I'm a resource, your board member's a resource, Andrea at isdta.net, or all of it's out on our website, isdta.net, under competition resources. Everything's out there. Okay? So with that, Lois, Liz, Alyssa, thank you so much for your time tonight, your expertise, the little snippets that you shared. Great advice. There's so much more to share, and we will get this out to share with everyone. So thank you for everyone that joined as well. Have a great night. We'll see you. Have a great long weekend.
Yes. See you guys later.